respected. You keep telling yourself you deserve better, yet somehow you keep ending up with the same man in a different body, different face, same pain, different voice, same confusion. And tonight, we're not just going to talk about why, we're going to face the truth that most people are too afraid to admit. There's a pattern in your life, and it didn't start with him. It started with what you believe you deserve when nobody's watching. And I'm going to say something to you the way Steve Harvey would say, it's real, raw, and straight from the heart. Because if you don't confront this truth, you're going to keep repeating the same chapter with a different name. You see, attraction is not random. It's not luck. It's not coincidence. It's a mirror. And every time you attract a man who confuses you, who drains you, who doesn't choose you fully, that mirror is trying to show you something about you that you haven't healed yet. Now listen carefully, because this is where it gets uncomfortable. You don't attract what you want. You attract what you tolerate. And that right there, that's the part nobody likes to hear. Because it's easier to say all men are the same. It's easier to blame him, his past, his behavior, his inconsistency. But if you're honest, if you're really honest, you've seen the signs early on, haven't you? You felt it in your gut. That little voice inside you whispered something's not right, but you ignored it. Why? Because sometimes your desire to be chosen becomes louder than your instinct to walk away. And that's where the cycle begins. You meet him, and at first he seems different. He says the right things. He gives you just enough attention to make you feel special. Not too much, just enough. And you start investing emotionally. You start imagining possibilities. You start hoping. And hope can be dangerous when it's placed in the wrong hands. Because while you're building a future in your mind, he's just enjoying the moment. And when he pulls back, when he becomes distant, when his energy shifts, that's when something inside you activates. You don't walk away. You lean in. You try harder. You give more. You become more understanding, more patient, more available. Not because he earned it, but because you're afraid to lose what you think you finally found. But let me ask you something. How can you lose something that was never fully yours to begin with? That silence right there, that question, it hits deep, doesn't it? Because deep down, you know the truth. You weren't being chosen. You were being kept just close enough. And the reason this keeps happening is not because you're weak. It's because somewhere along your journey, you learned that love requires struggle. Maybe you saw it growing up. Maybe you experienced it in your first heartbreak. Maybe someone taught you directly or indirectly that love is something you have to fight for, earn, prove yourself worthy of. So now, when something feels easy, when someone shows up consistently, clearly, and fully, it feels unfamiliar. And what feels unfamiliar feels uncomfortable. So you pull away from what's healthy and you lean toward what feels like home, even if that home hurts you. That's the trap. You confuse emotional chaos with passion. You confuse inconsistency with excitement. You confuse being challenged with being undervalued. And before you even realize it, you're stuck in a cycle where you keep trying to prove your worth to someone who already decided not to see it. Now let me slow this down because this part matters. You are not attracting him because he's special. You're attracting him because your boundaries are negotiable. And when a man meets a woman whose standards can be bent, he will bend them. Not always intentionally, not always maliciously, but people will only respect the limits you clearly enforce. If you accept late replies, you'll get late replies. If you accept inconsistency, you'll get inconsistency. If you accept being an option, you will never become a priority. And I know that stings. Because you want to believe that if you love harder, if you're more patient, if you give him time, he'll eventually realize your value. But listen to me carefully. A man who truly sees your value doesn't need time to recognize it. He doesn't need to lose you to appreciate you. He doesn't need confusion to figure out clarity. The right man doesn't come with a guessing game. He comes with peace. And the reason you keep attracting the wrong one is because deep down, you're still entertaining what you should be eliminating. You're still giving chances where you should be setting boundaries. You're still explaining yourself where you should be walking away. And every time you stay in something that doesn't honor you, you send a message to yourself that says, this is what I'm worth. Not with your words, but with your actions. And your life, it listens to your actions more than your affirmations. You can say, I deserve better all day long. But if you keep accepting less, your reality will always reflect that. Because life doesn't respond to what you say you want. It responds to what you show you're willing to accept. Now, here's the truth that changes everything. The moment you truly believe you deserve better, your behavior changes. You stop chasing. You stop over-explaining. You stop trying to convince someone to choose you. And you start choosing yourself. Not in a loud, dramatic way, but in a quiet, powerful way. You start walking away from confusion. You start honoring your intuition. You start setting standards that don't require negotiation. And suddenly, the men you used to attract, they don't even approach you the same way anymore because your energy has shifted. Your presence says, I am not available for anything that doesn't align with my worth. And trust me, people feel that. They may not be able to explain it, but they feel it. But getting to that point, it requires something most people avoid. It requires you to face yourself, to look at your patterns, to ask yourself hard questions. Why do I stay when I know I should leave? Why do I ignore red flags? Why do I feel the need to prove my worth to someone who doesn't see it? Those questions, they're not easy, but they're necessary. Because healing doesn't happen by blaming others. It happens by understanding yourself. And once you understand yourself, you break the pattern. You stop attracting the same kind of man because you're no longer the same version of yourself. And that's where your power is. Not in changing him, but in transforming you. Because the truth is, you don't need him to become better. You need you to become stronger in your standards, stronger in your self-respect. Stronger in your ability to walk away from anything that doesn't honor who you are becoming. And when you reach that level, you don't chase love. You attract it the right way, the healthy way, the peaceful way. But it all starts with one decision: to stop settling for what feels familiar and start choosing what feels right. Now, let me ask you something honestly. Are you ready to break that cycle, or are you still holding on to the hope that he will finally change? Because your answer to that question determines everything that comes next. All right, then listen closely, because this is where things start to shift inside you. You see, part one was about recognizing the pattern, but recognition alone doesn't change your life. Awareness without action is just another form of self-deception. And if you stay there too long, you'll become someone who understands the problem but never escapes it. Now let me take you deeper. The real reason you keep attracting him isn't just about what you tolerate. It's about what feels normal to your nervous system. Yeah. I said it because love for most people is not about what's right, it's about what's familiar. If you grew up in an environment where love was inconsistent, where attention came and went, where you had to earn affection, then your mind learned something dangerous. It learned that love is unpredictable. So now, when someone comes into your life and gives you mixed signals, hot and cold behavior, moments of affection followed by distance, your mind doesn't reject it, it recognizes it. And anything your mind recognizes, it labels as safe, even if it hurts you. That's why you can meet a good man, a consistent man, a man who communicates clearly, who shows up, who doesn't play games, and instead of feeling secure, you feel bored. Not because he's boring, but because your system isn't used to peace. You've been conditioned to associate emotional highs and lows with connection. So when there's no chaos, it feels like something is missing. And that's how you sabotage something real without even realizing it. Now I want you to really sit with that for a moment, because this isn't about blaming your past. This is about understanding how it shaped your present. And once you understand that, you can finally take your power back. See, healing isn't just about saying, I deserve better. Healing is about retraining your mind to accept better without questioning it, without running from it, without sabotaging it. And that takes work, real work, because you're not just changing your choices, you're changing your identity. You're becoming someone who no longer chases confusion, but demands clarity. Someone who no longer fears being alone, but fears being disrespected. Someone who no longer settles for potential, but requires consistency. And let me tell you something straight. The way Steve Harvey would tell you, a man will treat you based on how you present yourself and what you allow. Not what you say, not what you hope, but what you consistently accept. You can tell a man, I don't like inconsistency, Doc, but if you keep answering his late night texts, if you keep being available when it's convenient for him, if you keep forgiving the same behavior without consequences, then your actions are louder than your standards. And he will follow your actions every single time. That's not cruelty. That's human nature. People respond to patterns. So if your pattern says, I'll stay no matter what, then don't be surprised when he gives you no matter what treatment. But the moment your pattern changes, everything changes. The moment you stop responding to inconsistency, the moment you stop explaining your worth, the moment you start walking away from anything that doesn't feel aligned, you create a new reality. And here's the part most people don't talk about. When you start changing, you're going to feel uncomfortable. You're going to question yourself. You're going to wonder if you're being too harsh, too distant, too different. That's because growth feels unfamiliar, and anything unfamiliar feels wrong at first. But don't confuse discomfort with mistake. Sometimes discomfort is just a sign that you're finally doing something different, something better, something aligned with the version of you that no longer accepts less. Now let's talk about something deeper. Why do you keep giving chances? Why do you keep holding on even when the signs are clear? It's not just hope, it's attachment. You see, when someone gives you just enough attention to make you feel special and then pulls it away, your brain releases something powerful. It creates a craving. You start chasing the feeling, not the person. You start wanting those good moments again. And you convince yourself that if you just try a little harder, love a little deeper, be a little more patient, you'll get back to that version of him. But here's the truth. That version of him was never consistent. It was just enough to keep you hooked. And you deserve more than moments. You deserve consistency. You deserve clarity. You deserve peace, not confusion, not guessing games, not emotional roller coasters. But you won't experience that until you stop settling for less. And I know what you're thinking. What if I walk away and I lose him? Let me answer that for you. If walking away from inconsistency makes you lose him, then what you had was never stable to begin with. And losing something unstable is not a loss, it's a release, a necessary one. Because every time you hold on to the wrong person, you block the right one from entering your life. Not because the right one isn't out there, but because your energy, your time, your emotional space is already occupied. And the right man, he's not going to compete for your attention. He's going to recognize when you're unavailable, and he's going to move on. So the question is not, why do I keep attracting him? The real question is, why do I keep choosing him? Because attraction might be automatic, but attachment is a decision, a repeated one. And every time you choose someone who doesn't choose you fully, you reinforce the belief that this is what you deserve. But the moment you choose differently, the moment you say no more, the moment you walk away, even when it's hard, you break the cycle. And breaking that cycle is one of the most powerful things you will ever do in your life. Because it's not just about relationships. It's about your identity. It's about becoming someone who honors herself even when it hurts, even when it's lonely, even when it means letting go of something you wanted so badly. Because you finally understand wanting something doesn't mean it's right for you. And that realization, that shift, that awakening, that's where your real transformation begins. Now we're getting to the core of it. And in the next part, I'm going to show you exactly how to rebuild your standards, how to shift your energy, and how to become the version of yourself that naturally attracts the right kind of man without chasing, without proving, without losing yourself in the process. Because it's not just about breaking the cycle, it's about becoming someone who never falls into it again. All right, now we're stepping into the part that changes everything. Because knowing the pattern is one thing, breaking it is another, but becoming the kind of woman who never repeats it again, that's where real power lives. You see, up to this point, you've been reacting to love, reacting to attention, reacting to his behavior. If he pulls away, you feel it. If he comes close, you open up. If he's inconsistent, your emotions rise and fall with him. And without even realizing it, you've handed over control of your emotional world to someone who hasn't even proven they deserve a place in it. That right there, that's the imbalance. And the shift you need to make is simple in words, but powerful in practice. You stop reacting and you start choosing. You become intentional with your energy, intentional with your time, intentional with your heart, because not everyone deserves access to you. And I don't just mean physically, I mean emotionally, mentally, spiritually. Access to you is a privilege. But somewhere along the way, you started treating it like a giveaway. You let people in too quickly. You invest too deeply before they've shown consistency. You attach before they've earned trust. And then when they fail to meet your expectations, you're left trying to fix something that was never built on a solid foundation to begin with. So let's rebuild that foundation brick by brick. First, you need to understand your value, not in a surface level way, not in an I'm amazing kind of affirmation you say when you're feeling low. I'm talking about a deep, unshakable understanding of who you are and what you bring into someone's life. Because when you truly know your value, you don't feel the need to prove it. You don't chase validation. You don't overextend yourself just to be liked. You don't shrink yourself to fit into someone else's comfort zone. You stand firm, quietly, confidently. And that kind of energy, it changes everything. Because now instead of asking, does he like me? You start asking, do I even like what he's showing me? You flip the perspective. You become the one observing, not chasing, evaluating, not proving. And let me tell you something, the moment you make that shift, your entire dating experience transforms. Because now you're no longer trying to be chosen. You're doing the choosing. Now here's the second part, and this one is critical. You need standards, clear, non-negotiable standards, not preferences, not wishes, standards. There's a difference. Preferences are nice to have. Standards are must-haves. Preferences are, I like when he texts me good morning. Standards are, he communicates consistently and respectfully. Preferences are flexible. Standards are firm. And if you don't define your standards, life will define them for you based on what you tolerate. So ask yourself, what is the bare minimum I will no longer accept? Not what you hope for, not what you dream about, what you require. And once you define that, you protect it, not with anger, not with aggression, but with clarity. If someone shows you inconsistency, you don't argue about it. You observe it and you adjust your presence. If someone disrespects your time, you don't chase explanations. You create distance. If someone makes you question your worth, you don't stay and try to prove it. You leave quietly. And this is where most people struggle because walking away requires strength, especially when you're emotionally attached, especially when you've already invested time, energy, feelings. But listen to me, staying in something that disrespects you costs you more than leaving ever will. It costs your peace, your confidence, your self-worth. And over time, it changes how you see yourself. And that's a price too high to pay. Now let's go deeper because there's another shift you need to make. You need to stop romanticizing potential. This one right here, this is where so many people get stuck. You meet someone and you don't fall in love with who they are. You fall in love with who they could be. You see glimpses of greatness, moments of effort, little signs that make you think he has so much potential, and you hold on to that potential like it's a promise. But potential is not reality. Consistency is. And a man who has potential but no consistency will always leave you confused because you'll keep waiting for him to become who you believe he can be while he continues to show you who he actually is. And the longer you ignore reality, the deeper you fall into the illusion. So from this moment on, you don't date potential, you date patterns. What does he do consistently? How does he show up repeatedly? Does his actions align with his words? Because that's the truth, not the promises, not the excuses, not that he's going through something. Patterns don't lie. People do. Now here's the next level. You need to become emotionally self-sufficient. And I know that sounds heavy, but let me explain. It doesn't mean you don't need love. It doesn't mean you don't want connection. It means you don't depend on someone else to feel complete. Because when you depend on someone else for your emotional stability, you become vulnerable to their inconsistency. If they're present, you feel good. If they pull away, you feel broken. That's not love. That's dependency. Real love enhances your life. It doesn't control your emotional state. So when you become emotionally grounded, when your happiness is not tied to someone else's attention, you become powerful. Because now you can walk away from anything that disturbs your peace without feeling like you're losing yourself. Because you were never depending on them to define you in the first place. And this is where everything aligns. Your standards are clear. Your mindset is strong. Your self-worth is rooted. Your energy is protected. And suddenly, the men you used to attract don't feel the same anymore. Their inconsistency turns you off. Their lack of effort becomes obvious. Their mixed signals feel exhausting, not exciting. And instead of trying to fix them, you simply remove yourself without drama, without explanation, without guilt, because you understand something now that you didn't before. You are not responsible for someone else's growth. You are responsible for your own peace. And when you live by that, you stop attracting chaos because you no longer entertain it. Now listen carefully, because this is the moment where everything comes together. You don't raise your standards to find a better man. You raise your standards to become a better version of yourself. And the right man, he meets you there, not below, not halfway, at your level. But you have to get there first. And in the next part, we're going to bring it all together. We're going to talk about how to fully step into this new version of yourself, how to let go of the past without looking back, and how to open your life to the kind of love that doesn't hurt, doesn't confuse, and doesn't require you to lose yourself to keep it. Because you've done enough of that already. Now it's time to experience something different, something real, something healthy, something that matches the woman you are becoming, all right? This is it. This is where everything you've heard so far becomes real, because understanding your patterns, raising your standards, protecting your energy, all of that means nothing if you don't step fully into the woman you're becoming. And stepping into that version of yourself requires one final decision. You have to let go, not halfway. Not I'll keep him around just in case ... maybe one day he'll change ... No, you let go completely. And I know that's the hardest part, because letting go isn't just about losing him. It's about releasing the version of your life you imagine with him. It's about accepting that the future you hope for, the moments you picture, the love you believe could happen, it's not coming from that person. And that kind of acceptance, it hurts. Not because you're weak, but because you're human. But let me tell you something that will change how you see this pain. You're not losing the right person. You're releasing the wrong one. And there's a difference, a powerful difference. Because when you release the wrong person, you create space for clarity, space for growth, space for something real to enter your life. But if your hands are still holding on to someone who doesn't align with you, how can you receive what's meant for you? You can't. Now here's where your power shows up again, because letting go isn't just an emotional act. It's a declaration. It's you saying, I choose myself ... because you hate him, not because you're angry, but because you finally respect yourself enough to stop accepting less. And when you reach that point, something shifts inside you. You stop looking for closure from him. You stop needing answers. You stop replaying conversations in your mind, because you realize closure was never in his hands. It was always in yours. Closure is the moment you decide, I've seen enough, I've felt enough, and when that decision is real. When it comes from deep within you, you don't go back. Not because you can't, but because you don't want to. Because you've outgrown the version of yourself that tolerated that kind of love. And that's growth. That's evolution. That's power. Now let me prepare you for something, because once you let go, there's going to be a moment of silence, a moment where things feel empty, no text, no emotional highs and lows, no constant thinking about what he's doing. And in that silence, you might feel tempted to go back. Not because he was right for you, but because you're not used to the peace yet. Read that again in your mind. You're not used to peace. And peace can feel unfamiliar at first, but don't run from it. Sit in it. Breathe in it. Allow yourself to experience what it feels like to not be confused, to not be anxious, to not be questioning your worth every single day. Because that peace, that calm, that stability, that's what healthy love feels like. Not intensity, not chaos, not emotional roller coasters, but calm certainty. Now here's the final shift. You open your heart again, but this time differently. You don't rush. You don't ignore red flags. You don't invest too quickly. You observe. You take your time. You allow someone to show you who they are over time, and you match their effort, not exceed it. You give what is given. You don't overextend. You don't overgive. You stay balanced. And if they show up consistently, if they respect your boundaries, if they bring peace into your life instead of confusion, then and only then do you allow yourself to go deeper. Because now you're not falling blindly. You're choosing wisely. And that changes everything. Because the right man, he's not going to confuse you. He's not going to leave you guessing. He's not going to make you feel like you have to compete for his attention. He's going to be clear, consistent, intentional, and most importantly, he's going to choose you without hesitation. But here's the truth you need to hold on to. You won't recognize the right man if you're still attached to the wrong one. So this journey, it's not just about attracting better. It's about becoming better, stronger, more aligned with your work. And when you reach that place, love doesn't hurt the way it used to. It doesn't confuse you. It doesn't drain you. It adds to your life instead of taking from it. And that's the kind of love you deserve. Not because someone finally sees your worth, but because you finally do. And once you see it, everything changes. Now you no longer chase love, you choose it with clarity, strength, and self-respect. And the moment you finally value yourself fully, the right love stops being something you search for and starts being something that finds you.